Hi, Jenny here. This is some of my COVID reflections from the last few weeks when I've been here in lockdown in my house in the countryside in Sweden. We're all in lockdown in different parts of the world at the moment and getting pretty much back to basics. I think what we're seeing from social media is that a lot of people in all parts of the world are thinking a lot more than they ever have before about where their food comes from. I've heard from my colleagues in New Zealand and in Belgium that people are rushing out to buy seeds and potting mix, soil. And a lot of those people are new beginners. They don't actually know what to do with their seeds, but instinctively they know that this is really important for the future, that they have to grow their own food. We thought that food security was something that just affected people in other countries. It was an over there problem. It wasn't something that was going to affect us. But the big paradigm shift is now that I think we're seeing that everything affects us. Our future is going to be based on being able to provide the food that we need to survive, and we need to grow good food, we need good soil. Whether this is in agriculture or whether this is in our own domestic situation, we need good soil to be able to grow good food. And the bit that people are not yet really thinking about is, where does that soil come from? Yes, there is cow manure, but there are in no way enough cows to provide cow manure for everybody that needs it. We're not talking chemical fertilizers, we're talking organic fertilizers. It's really not that easy just to go and buy good soil. Good soil is something that you make yourself. You build it over weeks and months and years, and there are many, many ways of doing it. None of them are more right or wrong than anything else, but here in this network we work with Bokashi, and that is very much because food waste is something that we have in abundance. It's one of the things that will always be available to us as different forms of organic waste. I'm not talking about the food waste that should be eaten, I'm talking about the food waste that can't be eaten, the banana skins, the potato peels, the coffee grounds, the tea bags, all that sort of stuff that is free and is currently a huge wasted resource. In many countries it's going to landfill, where it becomes part of the destructive carbon cycle. Organic waste in an anaerobic environment in landfill turns directly to methane, which can fuel landfill fires in certain countries, and it's also a very potent gas which is released straight to the atmosphere, causing contributing to climate change. Other countries such as Sweden, organic waste is absolutely not going to landfill, but it is processed in biodigestion plants, but it's very centralised, and it means that the organic waste that is collected from our houses is transported quite significant distances before it is converted into fuels, which are actually really good and a cool way to fuel buses and so on. But if you have a garden, like I do and so many people do, even if it's a small garden on a balcony, you want to be able to have fantastic soil for your garden. And why would you send away the best resource that you have available to you to landfill or to the centralized systems when you could take care of it yourself? And this is what Bokashi is all about. We don't have like that many cows. We can't just go and buy cow manure. I live in the country. I have fields and things around me, but even so, there isn't that much cow manure to get hold of. So the absolute best thing I can do is use my food waste from home, and because I have quite a big garden and quite a small family, I get food waste from local coffee shops, coffee grounds largely from local coffee shops. I collect food waste from local offices and different places like that, so that I can do Bokashi in a slightly bigger scale and bring it back home to use in my garden. And this is how I've built up my whole garden here. This garden's really beautiful and nice, but when I started it was like a football field, and it was kind of like this really hard clay that I couldn't dig in. I couldn't even get a spade into it, so I knew the only way to make that become right was to keep adding organic material until the soil just came back to life and it became workable. And because I live in Sweden, it's quite cold. I've built all my boxes as raised beds, and I have built all the soil in those beds. I have 50 meters of raised beds, I'll show you later. And those boxes I filled with every different type of organic matter I could get my hands on. I've used some horse manure, I've used wood chips, I've used straw, I've used garden waste, and I've used an awful lot of bokashi from different places that I've mentioned. And that soil now is amazing. It's dark and rich and full of nutrients, and all I do each year is just top it up with a fresh layer of nutrients, but the soil itself is really living and good. So what this is showing me is that even in an environment that is, I have a big garden, it looks really like, fertile and stuff, I still had to build my own soil. So this could have just as well been a rooftop or a car park or, anywhere. And the climate doesn't even make such a big difference. Okay, where I live, it's quite Arctic. Now it's getting towards the end of April, and you can see the apple blossoms are still not even out. They'll come maybe next week. It's a beautiful time of year, but still, we're waiting on spring. But I work in Myanmar a large part of the year. It's tropical as hell. Right now it's getting up close to 45 degrees every day there, and we're doing a ton or two of bokashi per day based on food waste from markets, restaurants, schools, that sort of thing. And it works just as well there. You have different difficulties, you have different opportunities. I have colleagues in New Zealand, in Belgium, in the Philippines, all around the world, and we are all doing bokashi really, really well in every different type of climate. So what we're learning from this is that in all parts of the world we're facing food security, maybe not issues yet, but awareness. We're starting to realize, wow, this is actually something that could hit us in our lifetimes, like here and now, us. It's not what we've been trained to expect. So when we start to think about where our food is going to come from, yes, local producers and everything like that, we have to support them. But we also will be facing a situation where it makes sense for us to grow our own food. And then the first thing we have to do before we grow our own food is grow our own soil. And that you can do on a garden like this, you can do it on a rooftop, you can do it on a car park, you can do it on a lot of asphalt in front of a school or an office building or whatever. You can use in-ground beds, you can use raised beds, you can use whatever you need. You can grow in containers, you can really grow food more or less anywhere if you have the right soil. And the same applies to the climate. You can grow food in an Arctic environment, you can grow food in a tropical environment, you can grow food, obviously, in every climate zone in between. But still, none of that is going to work if you don't have good soil. So step one, build the soil. What are the resources that you have around you here and now? We're at home, a lot of us, more now than we're used to. Look around you. What have you got under your nose? Even if you live in an apartment, you're probably close to a cafe where you can get coffee grounds or some leftover sandwiches or some waste from the cafe or I don't know what. Do you have a supermarket that's throwing out a lot of green vegetables or leaves of cabbages or whatever per day? Are you near a school or a kindergarten or whatever? Are you in a suburban environment where people are throwing out a lot of dry leaves every year or garden waste? What do you have around you and what can be collected in as a resource that could be used? Because this is all about taking this thing of food security, which is something you normally see in the NGO world. It's the big problems that other people are dealing with, out there in other countries far away. But take that dynamic and bring it closer to home. Like, what is it that you can do in your own neighborhood, in your own backyard, on your own balcony, basically in your own little tiny, tiny world? What resources do you have around you? Who can you get help from? Who can you work with to collect in resources? Does a neighbour have grass cuttings they're not using properly? What have you got and what can you use and where can you grow food and how can you grow soil? And before you even get to the point of growing the food, how can you build the soil and what materials have you got that would be perfect for that application? And then what we're doing is taking this big issue of food security, of climate change, of resilience, of where we go in the future and how we cope with it, because the minute that we come out of this corona mess, we're going to go into other types of climate change messes. This is not something that just will poof go away. We're going to have this issue with us for a long, long time now. So we really need to get our act together and start growing food. We need to start growing for soil. Look for the resources. What have you got around you? No excuses, you know. It doesn't matter what your climate is. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what excuses you've got, because there's always a way around it. So what's your solution, and how can you make this work in your environment? So, you know, do an inventory. What have you got? What have you got around you? How can you get it home? How can you swap things with people? How can you make this happen? Where can you make your soil? Where can you grow your food? How can you do it? We know that bokashi is a good method because it works in almost every context. It's just the easiest way of building the best soil. But if you want to do it another way, that's fine. The main thing is that you make it happen. And just get going, you know. Do something small, and then do something bigger, and do something bigger. This is not the time to be afraid of small details. This is the time to show courage, to step up in our own personal life and show the courage that's needed to make just a little bit of soil, grow a little bit of food. Encourage our neighbours to make some soil, grow a little bit of food. Do a little bit more. Increase it, spread the message, make this happen, because this is so, so, so important to our future. And I think instinctively we're starting to understand that now. The challenge to all of us is to actually step up and take that first step, because it's always the first step is the hardest. You know that from walking in the mountains or any other thing. You take that first step, it's kind of terrifying. You have a lot of excuses. There's so many reasons why you don't want to do it, but do it anyway. And if it fails, what the hell? You know, if you're working with bokashi, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? So you waste some food waste, it'll turn in some way it will turn into soil sooner or later anyhow. Like, just try again. Dare to fail. Step up, dare to fail, have a go. Learn from the experts, make your mistakes, ask questions, learn, take it in. Don't think that you can't do this, because you can. Every single person on the planet can do this. It is not hard, and it's really important. It might be the most important decision you make all year, is to start looking after your food waste and join the soil revolution in your own backyard. So that's my challenge for you on this day. Are you up for it? Let's hear your thoughts. Bye.